The Galactic Council chamber was built to make anyone feel small. It was wider than a city square and taller than most mountains on Earth. The walls were made of smooth silver metal, covered with moving symbols and glowing lines of blue light. Floating platforms circled the room, each one holding representatives of a different alien species. Hundreds of eyes watched the center of the chamber, and in the center stood a single human girl. Her name was Ava. She looked young compared to beings around her. Her hands were locked behind her back with glowing energy cuffs. Her clothes were torn from days of confinement. There was dry blood on her sleeve, not fresh, but not old either. She stood still, very still. The floor beneath her feet was cold and white, polished to reflect the lights above. Behind her, a tall execution pillar slowly powered up. Thin lines of red energy moved across its surface, humming with quiet danger. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Order. The sound came from the galactic judge. He floated above the floor on a black platform, his body tall and thin, his skin pale like stone. His eyes glowed faintly as he looked down at the human girl, not with anger, not with hate, but with boredom. This council is now in final session, the judge said. The human subject known as Ava has been deemed a threat to galactic stability. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens leaned forward. Some turned away. Some watched with curiosity, like this was entertainment. Ava lifted her head slightly. She did not speak. The judge continued. Humans, he said, have been observed for centuries. A violent species, emotion-driven, unpredictable. Their history is full of war, destruction, and internal conflict. Large screens appear behind him, showing images of Earth, burning cities, old wars, missiles rising into the sky. These traits, the judge said calmly, make humanity unsuitable for continued existence among civilized species. The council lights pulsed once. The decision was already made. Ava felt her heart beat faster. She swallowed slowly and forced herself to breathe. Fear was there. She could feel it deep in her chest. But she did not let it control her face. She had learned that lesson a long time ago. The judge raised one long finger. The sentence, he said, is immediate execution. The word echoed. Execution. Ava closed her eyes for half a second, not in surrender, in focus. The execution pillar behind her grew brighter. The hum became louder, sharper, like the sound of metal tearing apart. Red light gathered at its core, forming a narrow beam aimed directly at her back. Security drones floated closer, their weapons already charged. None of them expected resistance. Why would they? She was human, alone, bound, the weakest species in the room. The judge leaned forward slightly. Do you have any final statement? He asked, his tone cold but formal. Ava opened her eyes. She looked up at him. Her face was calm. I do, she said. Her voice was steady, even though her hands trembled just a little inside the cuffs. The chamber grew quiet. The judge nodded once. Speak. Ava took a breath. You watched us, she said, but you never understood us. The judge did not react. You saw our wars, Ava continued, but not what came after. You saw our anger, but not our endurance. You judged us by our worst days. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. The judge raised his hand. Enough, he said. Your words changed nothing. He turned slightly toward the execution controls. Begin. The energy cuffs around Ava's wrists flickered. Just once. So fast that most of the council missed it. Ava felt it. A small change. A weakness. Her eyes sharpened. The judge paused. What was that? He asked. The cuffs flickered again. This time longer. A faint crack ran through the glowing surface of the energy field. Ava smiled. Not wide. Not proud. Just a small, quiet smile. The judge's eyes narrowed. Increase power, he ordered. The execution pillar surged. The energy beam fired. But at the exact moment it did, Ava moved. The cuffs shattered in a burst of white light. The beam missed her by inches, slicing into the floor where she'd been standing a second earlier. The chamber exploded into noise, alarms, shouting, confusion. Ava landed hard, rolling across the floor. She stood up fast, free. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, a human stood unbound before them. Security drones fired. Ava moved again. Fast. Too fast. The judge stared in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. Ava turned toward him. Her eyes locked onto his. "You made one mistake," she said quietly. The chamber shook as systems failed and lights flickered. The judge felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear, because the execution had failed. And the human girl was no longer the one on trial. The Galactic Council chamber was no longer calm. Red warning lights flashed across the silver walls. Holographic screens shattered into static. The perfect order of the room collapsed into noise and fear. Ava stood in the middle of it all, free. Her heart was racing, but her mind was clear. She had trained for chaos. On Earth, chaos was normal. Here it was unthinkable. Security drones fired again. Bright energy bolts cut through the air. Ava dropped low and rolled across the smooth floor. One bolt burned past her shoulder, leaving the smell of hot metal behind. Another struck the execution pillar, causing it to explode in sparks. Aliens screamed. Council members scrambled back on their floating platforms. Some tried to flee. Others froze, unable to understand what they were seeing. A single human was moving faster than their machines. Ava grabbed a fallen metal rod from the floor. It was part of the broken execution device. Heavy, sharp at one end, not a weapon by galactic standards. Good enough for a human. She threw it. The rod struck a drone midair, piercing its core. The drone fell, smoking, and slammed into the floor. The judge watched in horror. This was not possible. This was not logical. "Contain her," he shouted. "Do not let her reach the platform." More drones moved in, forming a wall of glowing shields. Ava slowed. She knew she could not outrun all of them. So she didn't. She stopped moving. The drones hesitated, confused by her sudden stillness. Ava raised her hands slowly. Many of the council members relaxed, thinking it was over. They were wrong. Ava slammed her foot into the floor. The polished surface cracked. A shock wave rippled outward, the result of controlled force and gravity manipulation hidden inside her boots. Technology humans never shared. The drones lost balance. Ava sprinted forward. She leaped onto one drone, used it as a step, then jumped again, higher than any unmodified alien body could. Gasps filled the chamber. She landed on the edge of the judge's platform. The judge stepped back. "Stay away," he said, his voice shaking. Ava straightened. Up close, the judge looked fragile. His skin was thin, his movements slow. His power had always come from distance, from authority, not strength. "You judge my entire species," Ava said calmly, "and you never asked one question." The judge tried to activate a personal shield. It failed. Human interference. "How?" he whispered. "You are not enhanced enough for this." Ava tilted her head. "That's where you're wrong," she said. "I'm not special." That sentence hit harder than any strike. Not special? The judge looked around the chamber, at the fallen drones, at the cracked floor, at the fear in the council's eyes. If she was average, "What are you?" he asked. Ava stepped closer. "We're survivors," she said. "Your galaxy is safe. Clean, ordered. Ours was not." She remembered Earth. Storms, wars, hunger, loss. Humans had learned to endure pain instead of avoiding it. The judge backed into the control console. "You will die here," he said weakly. "Even if I fall, the council will destroy your world." Ava stopped inches from him. "No," she said. "You won't." She reached out and placed her hand on his chest. The judge froze. Human touch. Warm. Steady. Unafraid. "You see," Ava continued, "we didn't come to conquer you. We came to join you. To learn. To trade. To help." Her eyes hardened. "You chose execution." She moved. Fast. One precise motion. The judge never screamed. His body collapsed as Ava stepped back, letting him fall to the platform floor. Dead. The chamber fell into absolute silence. No alarms, no shouting, no movement. The galactic judge dead by human hands. Ava looked up at the council. "You still want to continue this trial?" she asked. No one answered. Some council members lowered their eyes. Others stared at the body of the judge, unable to understand what had just happened. Ava turned away from the platform and looked toward the massive observation windows. Beyond them was open space, stars stretching endlessly. She raised her wrist. A small device blinked to life. A hidden signal activated. Far beyond the council chamber, far beyond the station, something received the call. Human ships. They had been waiting. Ava spoke softly, knowing her words were being recorded. "This is Ava," she said. "Judgment has been passed." The device went silent. The council realized then that this was never just one human. This was a test, and they had failed. Ava turned back toward the council. "You wanted to erase us," she said. "Instead, you introduce yourselves to us." She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing across the chamber. No one tried to stop her, because for the first time in galactic history, the council understood one terrifying truth. They had misunderstood humans, and the consequences were only beginning. The Galactic Council chamber did not return to normal after Ava left. It could not. The body of the galactic judge still lay on the platform, unmoving. His blood, dark and thick, slowly spread across the polished surface. No one dared to approach him. The council members sat in silence. For centuries, this chamber had been a place of absolute power. Decisions made here shaped entire star systems. Wars ended. Species vanished. Civilizations rose or fell based on a single vote. And now, that power felt fragile. Broken. A senior counselor finally spoke. His voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. "Seal the station," he ordered. "No ships in or out." The command echoed through the chamber. Nothing happened. The counselor frowned and repeated the order, louder this time. Still nothing. A technician spoke from a side platform, his voice shaking. "Counselor, we no longer control the station systems." A low murmur spread through the room. "That is impossible," another counselor said. "This station is protected by the highest level of security." The technician swallowed. "It was," he replied. "Human code has overridden our systems." Fear moved through the chamber like a living thing. Humans. The word felt heavier now. Ava walked calmly through the wide corridors of the station. No alarms followed her. No guards blocked her path. Doors opened before she reached them, lights guiding her forward. She was not running. She did not need to. Human ships had arrived in the outer perimeter of the system. Silent, dark, dozens of them, holding position just beyond weapon range. They did not attack. That was worse. Inside the council chamber, a new hologram appeared above the judge's platform. It showed a single human figure, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore no armor, no uniform, only simple dark clothing. The council stared. "This transmission is unauthorized," one counselor shouted. The image spoke calmly. "This is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Fleet," the man said. "We are here because one of ours was sentenced to death without cause." Several council members recoiled. "You have violated galactic law," a counselor shouted. "You have committed murder within this chamber." The admiral nodded slowly. "You are correct," he said. "By your laws." He paused. "Now listen carefully," he continued, "because this is the last warning humanity will give." The chamber grew quiet. "We sent Ava to speak for us," the admiral said. "Not to fight, not to threaten, just to exist among you." Some counselors looked away. "You chose to judge her by our history," the admiral said, "and you chose to execute her for it." His eyes hardened. "On Earth," he continued, "we learned something early. If someone tries to kill one of us without reason, they have already declared war." A counselor stood. "This is madness. You are one species among thousands." The admiral smiled faintly. "Yes," he said, "we are." The smile faded. "And yet, You all stopped breathing when one human stood up. Silence followed. The council understood then. This was not a threat. It was an observation. The admiral leaned closer to the camera. "We are not asking for revenge," he said. "We are asking for accountability." Another counselor spoke, his voice low. "What do you want?" The admiral answered without hesitation. "Recognition," he said. "Humanity will no longer be classified as a threat species. We will have equal standing in this council." He paused. "And Ava walks free." The council hesitated. Outside the station, human ships adjusted their formation slightly, not aggressively, just enough to be noticed. A reminder. Back in the corridors, Ava stopped near a large window overlooking space. She watched the stars quietly. Her hand still shook a little now that the danger had passed. She was not fearless. She was human. A small drone floated toward her, projecting a soft light. "Ava," Admiral Hayes' voice said gently, "are you injured?" She exhaled slowly. "No," she said, "just tired." "You did well," he said. "I didn't do it alone," Ava replied. "They made the choice." She looked back toward the council chamber. "They always do," the admiral said. Inside the chamber, the council argued. Voices overlapped. Fear fought with pride. Finally, the senior counselor raised his hand. "We agree," he said reluctantly. "Humanity will be granted equal status." A ripple of shock moved through the chamber. "And the human girl?" Another asked. "She will leave unharmed," the counselor said. The hologram of the admiral nodded. "Wise," he said. The transmission ended. The human ships did not move. Not yet. The council realized something important. Humans were disciplined. They did not strike in anger. They did not rush to violence. They waited. Ava reached the docking bay. A human shuttle waited for her, its ramp lowering as she approached. She paused at the entrance and looked back once more at the massive station. She felt no victory, only sadness. This did not have to happen. As she stepped onto the shuttle, news of the event spread across the galaxy. Worlds that had never feared humans before began to study them carefully. Military leaders asked new questions. Scientists rechecked old assumptions. Politicians felt uneasy. One fact was now undeniable. A single human had faced the galaxy and survived. And if one could do that, what could humanity do together? The shuttle doors closed. The engines ignited. And far across the stars, the galaxy began to understand. Humanity had arrived, and it was no longer asking for permission. News of the galactic judge's death spread faster than light. Every major system received the report within hours. Some messages were official and carefully written. Others were panicked, full of fear and confusion. One fact was repeated in every version. A human girl had killed the galactic judge. For many species, this was impossible to understand. The judge had been untouchable, protected by law, power, and tradition older than most civilizations. And yet he was gone. Across the galaxy, governments held emergency meetings. Military fleets were placed on high alert. Old defense systems, untouched for centuries, were powered back on, not because humans had attacked, but because humans had responded. That difference mattered more than anyone wanted to admit. On the United Earth flagship, Ava sat alone in a quiet room. The walls were plain, the lighting soft. It was very different from the council chamber. Safe, human. A medical officer checked her injuries and then left her in silence. Ava stared at her hands. They still felt warm. She did not regret what she had done, but she understood the weight of it. One action had shifted the balance of the entire galaxy. Admiral Hayes entered the room quietly. "You should rest," he said. "I will," Ava replied. "Soon." He sat across from her. "You knew this would change everything," he said. "Yes," she answered. "But it would have changed anyway. They just forced a moment." The admiral nodded. Humans had learned long ago that peace only lasted as long as everyone respected it. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, chaos hid behind calm voices. The council reconvened without the judge. His platform remained empty, a silent reminder of what had happened. No one rushed to fill the position. No one wanted to stand there. "We must present strength," one counselor said. "If we appear weak, other species will panic." Another shook his head. "Strength is what caused this," he replied. "We mistook dominance for control." Arguments filled the chamber. Some wanted to cut all contact with humanity. Others feared what would happen if they tried. A third group asked the most dangerous question of all: what if humans were right? For the first time, the council had to admit that its system was flawed. They had judged entire species based on history, not intent. Humans were simply the first to survive the judgment. Outside the station, human fleets remained in position. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They waited. That silence was unbearable. A junior counselor finally spoke. Her species had barely survived an ancient council decision centuries ago. "We should study humans," she said. "Not as a threat, as a mirror." The room fell quiet. "What do you mean?" someone asked. "They show us what happens when power becomes blind," she said. "They did not attack until forced. And even then they stopped." That truth unsettled many. Elsewhere in the galaxy, smaller species reacted differently. Some celebrated quietly. The judge had ended worlds without ever seeing them. Others were afraid. If humans could kill the judge, could they kill anyone? Human ambassadors were suddenly welcomed into systems that had once refused them entry. Messages arrived on Earth from species asking for trade, protection, or alliance. Humanity did not answer right away. They discussed. They debated. Because humans understood something the galaxy did not yet grasp. Power without restraint destroyed itself. Ava stood on the observation deck of the flagship. Stars drifted slowly past a wide glass window. She felt small again, but not helpless. Admiral Hayes joined her. "The council is changing," he said, slowly. "Good," Ava replied. "They need to." "There are those who want revenge," he continued. "Not against you, against us." Ava nodded. "Fear does that." The Admiral looked at her. "Would you do it again?" She thought for a long moment. "Yes," she said quietly. "Because if I hadn't, they would have killed the next human, or the one after that." The Admiral placed a hand on her shoulder. "You reminded the galaxy of something," he said. "What?" she asked. "That humans are not weak," he replied, "and not cruel." Ava watched the distant star flare. "We're just honest about what it costs to survive," she said. On the council station, a final decision was made that night. The execution pillar was dismantled, publicly, across all galactic channels. The message was clear. The age of silent judgment was over. A new era had begun, one built on caution, fear, and careful respect. Not because humanity demanded it, but because humanity had earned it. As the human fleets finally began to withdraw, many species released breaths they did not know they were holding. The galaxy had not been conquered, but had been changed. And deep down, everyone knew the truth. The next time the galaxy faced a crisis, it would look toward humanity, not as a threat, but as a force that could not be ignored. The galaxy did not return to peace. It only slowed down. In the weeks after the judge's death, systems that had stayed silent for centuries began to speak. Some messages were polite. Some were fearful. Others were angry. All of them mentioned one thing. Humans, on Earth. The world governments met in constant session. Screens filled entire rooms, showing maps of star systems, trade routes, and fleet movements. Humanity had never been this visible before, and visibility came with a cost. "We are becoming the center of attention," one leader said. "That makes us a target." "Yes," another replied, "but it also makes us necessary." Human fleets remained defensive. Patrols increased near human space, but no weapons were fired. Humanity chose patience, even when it was hard. They remembered history. Fear often attacked first. Ava was offered medals, titles, and public praise. She refused them all. Instead, she asked to be assigned as a human observer to the Galactic Council. Many were surprised. "You don't owe them anything," Admiral Hayes told her. "I know," Ava replied. "That's why it matters." The council chamber looked different when Ava returned. The execution pillar was gone. The judge's platform had been lowered to floor level. New seats had been added, including one designed for humans. Still, many eyes followed her as she walked inside, some with respect, some with fear, some with hatred. The council began its session with caution. Every word was chosen carefully, every motion slow and deliberate. A senior counselor finally addressed Ava. "Your presence here," he said, "is unsettling." Ava nodded. "That's fair. You represent a species capable of great destruction," he continued. "So, do you?" Ava replied calmly. The counselor had no answer. Outside the chamber, the galaxy continued to react. Smaller species formed new alliances, hoping human protection would keep them safe. Old empires watched closely, measuring human strength without fully understanding it. Not all reactions were peaceful. A fringe alliance of war-focused species met in secret. They believed the council had grown weak. Humans must be tested, their leader said, before they believed themselves untouchable. A plan was formed, a dangerous one. The attack came without warning. A human trade convoy near the outer colonies was ambushed. 3 civilian ships were destroyed. No survivors. The message was clear. Humanity had enemies now. When the news reached Earth, silence followed. Then action. Human fleets mobilized, but they did not strike back immediately. Instead, Admiral Hayes sent a message across the galaxy. "We know who did this," it said. "We will respond, but not blindly." The council urged restraint. Some begged. Some demanded punishment. Ava stood before them again. "If we respond with rage," she said, "we become what you feared." "And if you do nothing?" a counselor asked. Ava's eyes hardened. "Then we invite more attacks." The solution was human, precise, limited, unavoidable. Human forces intercepted the attackers' fleets in deep space. No planets were harmed. No civilians targeted. The battle was short. Human technology, built for survival rather than beauty, proved overwhelming. When it ended, the attackers were disabled, not destroyed. Their ships were left drifting, powerless. A final message was sent. This was mercy, it said. Do not mistake it for weakness. The galaxy listened. Fear shifted. Respect followed. Back on the council, something changed. Human words carried weight now, not because of violence, but because of control. Ava watched the chamber carefully. She saw it in the way council members spoke more slowly, in how they listened instead of assuming. Change was happening. Slowly, painfully, but it was real. One counselor approached Ava after a session. "You scare us," he admitted. Ava met his gaze. "Good." Then she softened. "But we don't want to rule you," she said. "We just want to stand beside you." The counselor nodded. "That may be more dangerous." Ava smiled faintly. "It usually is." As months passed, humans became mediators in disputes they had nothing to gain from. They offered solutions instead of threats. Some species accepted, others resisted, but none ignored them. Late one night, Ava stood alone on a balcony overlooking a distant star system. Admiral Hayes joined her. "You changed the galaxy," he said. "No," Ava replied. "I forced it to look at itself." He considered that. "What happens next?" he asked. Ava watched the stars. "Now," she said, "we find out if the galaxy can survive honesty, because humanity had paid the price to be heard. And the galaxy would never be the same again." The galaxy did not forget. It could not. Too much had changed. Years passed, but the moment when a human girl stood alone before the Galactic Council became a turning point taught in academies, studied by strategists, and whispered about in quiet places. The council chamber itself became a symbol. The place where judgment once meant death now meant debate. And at the center of that change stood Ava. She was older now. Not much, but enough. Lines of experience showed in her eyes. She no longer wore simple clothes. Her attire marked her as a human representative, but not a ruler. She refused that title. The Galactic Council gathered for a final vote, one that would decide how history remembered humanity. The chamber was full, more full than ever before. Species that had never shown their faces now attended. Those once silenced now had voices. The senior counselor stood. For the last cycle, he said, the galaxy has existed under uncertainty. Humans have demonstrated strength, restraint, and judgment. He paused. We must decide how they are recorded in galactic law. The old classifications appeared on the screens. Threat species. Restricted. Observed. Ava watched quietly. The counselor continued. These labels were created from fear, he said, and fear has failed us. One by one, council members spoke. Some admitted past mistakes. Some struggled to let go of old beliefs. Some still feared humanity. But none could deny the truth. Humans had not conquered. They had not demanded tribute. They had not ruled. They had stabilized. The vote began. Lights changed color across the chamber. One by one, green, green, green. When the final count appeared, silence filled the room. The decision was unanimous. Humanity was reclassified, not as a threat, not as a weapon, but as a guardian species. A species trusted to act when balance failed. The chamber erupted into sound, not applause, but something deeper. Relief, awe, acceptance. Ava closed her eyes briefly. She felt the weight lift. The senior counselor turned to her. Human Ava, he said, you stood where no one else dared. You changed the path of the galaxy. Ava stepped forward. I didn't change it alone, she said. You chose to walk it. She looked around the chamber. Remember this, she continued. Humans are not perfect. We fail. We fight. We fall. Her voice grew firmer. But when we stand up, we do not forget who stood with us and who tried to crush us. The council listened. Across the galaxy, the announcement spread. Humanity was no longer feared as an unknown. They were respected as a known force, not because they were the strongest, but because they knew when not to use strength. Years later, a young alien student stood before a display showing the history of the council. He stared at an image of Ava standing alone in the chamber. Is it true, he asked his teacher, that she could have destroyed them all? The teacher considered. Yes, she said, but she didn't. Why? The teacher smiled faintly. Because humans understand something many species never learn, she said. Power is proven not by what you can destroy, but by what you choose to protect. On Earth, Ava stood on a quiet hill, watching the sunrise. Admiral Hayes was gone now. Many of the old leaders were gone, but humanity remained. Stronger, wiser, still human. A message arrived from the Galactic Council. A new crisis had begun on the edge of known space. A conflict no one else could stop. They asked for help. Ava looked at the stars. She did not smile. She did not hesitate. She answered, yes, because humans did not seek dominance. They responded to need. And far across the galaxy, a simple truth was now understood. When the stars faced judgment, they trusted humanity, not because humans were heroes, but because humans survived long enough to learn what mattered. And that was the final verdict of the stars.